Welcome to another episode of Behind the Bench series. In this month of June, we are hearing the wonderful things and stories that our wonderful PhD student, Jordan Pratt, is sharing with us. I hope you have been following Jordan Pratt's videos. So welcome to the show today, Jordan.
Thanks, Linda.
Great. So today, Jordan is fired up and wants to tell us all about her research. And I hope that, this will be an exciting time for everyone. So, Jordan, I have my first question for you.
Okay.
Okay. First and foremost, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Good. I like that you're smiling. So, you are doing research. You've been telling us that your research is on understanding antimicrobial resistance in pets, especially in dogs in Northern Ireland. And you want to understand antimicrobial use and prescription and what factors drive that and how AMR might be shared between owners and their dogs. Can you tell us one key question that you're trying to address with your research?
My research focuses on a lot of different areas, but one of the key questions is looking at factors influencing treatment decisions from dog owners. So, looking at things like immediate relief from symptoms, whether recommendations from vets play a part in that decision, looking at things like cost, ease of administration, and so on.
What do you hope to achieve by looking at all these different factors?
Hoping that we'll be able to um, reduce antimicrobial use. So looking at if these behaviours, if, for example, if recommendations from vets are high, we potentially could bring in that vets play or educate vets to educate dog owners more about antimicrobial use and awareness. We also looked at antimicrobial awareness in dog owners, and we found that it was generally quite low. So these are all kind of key factors that can come together to kind of maybe create an education campaign to raise more awareness about AMR in general, but also in the dog owner population.
Oh, that's very exciting. When we talk about antimicrobial resistance, we tend to limit it to a hospital
Yes.
problem. But potentially there are pets and animals, including dogs, which have infections and therefore have to be treated with the same antibiotics that we use in clinic for
Yes.
human infections as well. So it's a really important aspect that you're looking at. That leads me sort of to my next question. Okay. I heard in your previous video, you had mentioned that you were trying to understand antimicrobial resistance, carriage, and shared bacteria and fungal um, um, microbes between dogs and their owners. Is there a reason why you're looking at this?
Yes, so we're looking to see if there's household transmission of AMR between both dogs and their owners. That transfer can be bidirectional from owners to dogs, but also potentially could be from dogs to owners. So we've collected fecal samples and skin swabs from both dogs and their owners across Northern Ireland. And we're going to be looking at the bacteria and fungi present in the microbiome, but also we'll be looking at if there's different AMR genes that are carried between dogs and their owners.
That one.
I just want to take this opportunity to thank all the people that have participated in the project so far, because without everyone it would not be possible. But yeah, we've got a really good participation so far in this study.
Yeah. And I think it will be very exciting whenever you start getting the results
Yes,
through
definitely.
and the owners start to see some of the things. I'm sure it will be lovely to kind of see what you share with your
Yeah.
dogs, right? We share with your pet. So how far into your project are you, Jordan?
So I'm halfway there. Still have some progress to go, but my PhD funding is for 3 years, so I'm just over what's half of, I couldn't think of them once.
Okay.
I'm just over halfway there now.
And what is one thing that excites you the most about what you're going to find out from your research?
I'm really excited to see the results from the dog owner samples. Because I think that that area is quite novel, and there's not a lot of research done into looking at the transmission between dogs and their owners. So I'm really excited to see what we find in
Yeah.
those.
Yeah. So are you a dog owner yourself, and what made you want to study this research? Has it always been something you wanted to study?
Yeah, so I actually am a dog owner myself. I have a dachshund called Maddie. She's very cute. But yeah, so I was thinking about doing a PhD and I wasn't really sure of like what area to look at. And I'd seen a joint call led by DAERA and AFB. I think it was linked with Queen's as well, looking for someone to go into like companion animal research, and a call that there was a quite an overlooked area. There wasn't a lot of research in it. So I was like,
Mm.
oh, that's potentially something I would be interested in, especially being a dog owner myself. It was something that I actually hadn't considered, that even would be a potential transmission of AMR between dogs and their owners and that kind of thing. So I was like, well, that sounds interesting. So that's when I developed my DAERA proposal, and seek funding through that. So
Okay. You just mentioned DAERA proposal, and I know you've mentioned DAERA in your previous video. Can you walk us through what that proposal um, looks like? How does, if a student was looking to apply to DAERA, which is the Department for Agriculture, Environment and Rural
first, yeah.
Affairs in Northern Ireland, can you walk us through what that process is like and how did you navigate it?
Yes, so they put out a list of research calls around December time. There's usually around 80 different topics. And then you basically can base a PhD off one of those research topics. So mine, I can't remember the exact title, but it was to do with companion animals and antimicrobial use. And then based off that, then you develop a supervisory team. So I teamed up with Linda and Alberto, and um rewrote the proposal. So the proposal is around I think it was around 5,000 words. It's kind of looking at like the impact your research will have, the economic value of that research,
Mm,
and then just like the overall aims and objectives you plan. And then also you also have to write a little bit about yourself. So how you think you'll carry it out in a 3-year time frame, and then why you think you might be suited to do a PhD and your experience. And then following that, then so that usually closes around February time, and then following that, usually around a month later, they call for interviews. And then you have about 3 weeks to prepare. So my interview was at the end of March. I think they usually around that time. I think this year they were early April. And at the interview, it's usually quite a similar interview every year. It's based off your proposal. So a lot of the questions are based more on the project rather than the person. I know for like DFE it can be a wee bit different. They don't really tend to ask project specific questions.
mm,
But majority of the questions are about the project, and then followed by that there's a couple of questions just about yourself and why you'd be a good fit. And following that, then it's a couple of weeks and then you get the outcome. So usually around mid-April. So that was the process of applying.
mm, mm. Yes, I remember when you were doing the application. How many iterations of your application did you do before you ended up
I
submitting
think
it? Do
it's
you remember?
I don't know, too many.
Too many revisions, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that that's the thing about an application. You have your general idea, you
Yeah.
put it in, and then your supervisory team looks at it and they go, prune that.
Yes.
And yeah,
I
yeah.
think, yeah, it's good to have a good supervisor team as well, because I obviously hadn't any experience in writing an application like that before, to know
Mm-hmm.
what would be feasible within a PhD time frame and things like
Mm-hmm.
that.
Yeah. I think from my perspective, when I read your application for DARA, when I got your first draft, I hadn't appreciated how much of an application it was. I just thought, this is student-led applications. It's
Yeah.
going to be easy, but there was quite a lot of questions in
Yeah,
there.
it's quite a lengthy application
Yeah.
compared to other PhDs I know. For DFE, they're a lot shorter, but
Mm-hmm.
it's quite a lengthy application. It does take some time. So if you're thinking of applying, definitely start reaching, like thinking about it early
Mm-hmm.
rather than closer to the deadline, because it will take a lot of time. Like it does
Yeah.
take a good bit of time,
Mm-hmm.
especially when you have other commitments. If you're an undergraduate
Like
student,
yourself,
like I was
you were studying when you
yeah.
were
So if
doing
you're
this.
studying alongside it, you need to make sure you're going to allow a good bit of
Mm-hmm.
time.
Yeah. Yeah, because it can become quite hectic because it's
Yeah.
around the same time that undergraduate students are finishing or trying to do their
Yeah,
projects for
it's
the
usually
year
when you're kind of
and
finishing up your
exams.
projects. So it's
Yeah,
good to get on top of things early.
great, great. Well, I'm sure that the next call for that is only around the corner. Before you know it, it's time for another PhD round for those of you who are looking. And the DAERA projects, they're only open to UK students.
Yeah.
But I think there's also another caveat to that, right? in that you have to have been living in Northern
Yes, you
Ireland.
have to have lived in Northern Ireland for at least 3 years.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
UK students living in Northern Ireland for 3 years can apply.
Yes. Yes. So, yeah, I think also students from the Republic can
Yeah.
apply if they meet the
Yeah, if
criteria
you
of.
meet the criteria, if you've been living here 3 years, you're
Yeah.
eligible.
Yes. Okay. Excellent. So, it sounds all very interesting, the work that you've been doing. Now, one thing I want to learn, because you just said you've had samples coming.
Yeah.
Can you tell me the process of how did you get approval to work with samples? How did you get your samples in? Was that a straightforward process? How did that go?
Yeah, that was quite a lengthy process. So I had to go through like a full ethical approval to because I was working with human fecal samples. So that I started that pretty early on in November in my project, which I was quite glad on now because it took nearly a year to be approved. But I definitely learned a lot during that because no one in our lab had previously done a full ethical approval for the likes of human samples. So it was definitely a learning curve. But yeah, so I applied for the ethical approval in November time. By the time we had some amendments and other things, it was probably around, I think it was August time when I got it approved. And then from that, then I had to recruit participants from a previously I had done questionnaires, so people had expressed interest, and from that, then I sent out emails to those people who expressed interest previously, and gathered a number of people that were happy to participate. We did have some logistical issues with the postage, which we did get sorted out, but that obviously took a little bit of time. Was a hiccup we didn't expect to have, but following from that, then our first sample collection kits went out in the new year, and I think I have all the samples back into the lab, which is great. So um, it's
That's
definitely
excellent.
did take some time, but if you're thinking about doing that kind of thing, I definitely advise getting the ethical approval in early because it can take some time with different amendments.
Yeah, yeah, and I think because you're working with both animal and human samples, if it was just the animal samples,
Yeah,
that might
it's a
have
bit
been a little
easier.
bit
Yeah,
different. But you had to take training on the human
for
tissue
sure. Yeah,
tissue act and things like that, and how to store your samples and how to archive the
yeah,
and do storage, which were all very interesting things. I think you haven't mentioned this, but I think one of the things that I've really enjoyed about your project is your project, right? But I think one of the things that I've really enjoyed about it is that all of that creative side of things, because you've had to do a lot of flyers and a lot of. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Do you
yeah.
find that takes away from the actual PhD, or do you actually find that something that you like to do?
I really enjoy that side of things. Because I like even when I was younger, I always would have done like helped out a lot with like different social media pages for in school and stuff like that. So my project was like a good opportunity for me to show more of my creative side of things.
Hmm.
Because I really enjoy like making videos
Yeah.
and creative content and things like that. So I have like Instagram and LinkedIn for my project page, and I share some stuff on there.
We're going to put the links down for you
Yeah,
so that you can see some of the wonderful images and flyers that
yeah.
she's been making.
So I
Yeah.
say I also love photography and things like that as well. So it was a good opportunity for me to get to share some of that.
Yes, you need to teach me some skills. You know the video that you did for your for the participants, showing them how they need to collect their
Yeah.
sample and how they send it to you. I thought that that was an excellent video. So you need to teach me some of those skills. I'm jealous. I'm also jealous of the fact that you get to learn how to work with quantitative and qualitative data on that behavioral side of things on the questionnaires, because that's not something I've done before. So I've never worked with, say, SPSS as a
Yes.
tool before, which you're doing.
No, it's
So it
Stata.
is Stata that you're
Yeah.
doing. Great. So I've never even worked with Stata before. So I always feel, oh, such a privilege to be able to
Yeah.
learn all of those different skills.
Yeah, that's something I'm really glad I got to develop, especially with like use R and stuff as well. So
Yes.
during my
Hmm.
undergrad, I used to look at it and be like, "Oh my word, I could never do that." But like that was my goal for my PhD when it was partly desk based as well. That I wanted to become more confident in that like statistical analysis
Yeah.
using like the likes of R and Stata
Hmm.
and be more confident in that. So
Yeah. And then when you start doing the lab-based work, when you do your metagenomics, you're going to be doing a lot of
yeah,
other tools. So it's very complementary, and you're working with stakeholders, which puts you right in the right place and trying to hopefully make impact out of your work more
yeah.
visible. So my last question, okay. So what impact do you think that your work could have once you're finished? Well, I guess you finish your PhD and there might still be more things to do, but what impact do you think this would have immediately or in the
Yeah.
future?
I really want to like raise more awareness about AMR, specifically in dog owners, but not only that, just in general, in the general public. I think a lot of people in their PhDs, or not necessarily in PhDs, but a lot of people do research and then it just sits there. There's no like communication with like the general public.
Hmm.
So I think it's really important for me that as well as getting these results that I'm able to like share them with the wider community,
Mm-hmm.
and raise more awareness about antimicrobial use and
Yep.
antimicrobial resistance in
Mm.
the this sector.
Okay. I did say I would ask you a final question, but this, I promise, this one's the final one for this particular episode. What advice would you give to any student who is thinking of starting a PhD, or maybe they're starting one soon and they're not sure what to expect? What thing would you say you've learned and what advice would you give? It can be more than one.
Oh, okay. That's actually a good question because I probably have a few. At the start, I wouldn't say I was very confident in myself and my public speaking, but the advice I would give is to just get as much practice as possible, put yourself out there and go to conferences, take any opportunity you can get, even if that's just to present in front of your lab group, or just your like other PhD students as well, or like panels in the school, things like that. There's opportunity to do like thesis competition. I didn't do it this year, but potentially might do it another year, um, and different things like that. Also, during at the start of my PhD, especially in this time and on, I always felt like when things were going well, something just had to go wrong, and things just couldn't go well for me. But I just needed to get that out of my head and think, um, trusted the feedback I was given and things like that. So
Yeah, I think you should trust in the feedback you're given. I don't think that any one of your supervisory team sugarcoats
no,
anything, and they give it to you as it is.
yeah,
And I think you need to believe in yourself. We believe in you, and we think you're doing really well. We know you're doing really well, and we want you to have confidence in our
it's
confidence.
yeah.
Okay. And I trust you're getting more and more confident, and I know that you will become even more confident. There's always that thing of, am I supposed to be here? Every
Yeah,
one of us has it, the famous imposter syndrome. But look at the evidence, not what you feel. Look at the evidence, and the evidence is in the work and the output and in the feedback that you're being given. I think that that's something that anybody should take away from this. So well done.
thanks.
Thank you so much for joining us. Next week or next time on Behind the Bench, um, Jordan will be sharing with us during the lunch hour on the last Friday of the month, and she's going to be showing us some of the results from her research. So please join us then. Thank you so much for joining
Yeah,
me today,
thanks
Jordan.
for having me today,
And
Linda.
yep, see you again on Behind the Bench series. Bye.
Bye.